Welcome back to the channel. This is Wes, and today Doc and I are going to discuss how the new X-Men team, which was revealed in Hellfire Gala 2022, debuted in X-Men number 13, was destroyed. Essentially, the debut was destroyed by the Judgment Day event. We also got the first big Judgment Day miniseries tying into the event. That didn't go well either. But first, I thought I would give you guys some good news. We do have these special covers for Exterminators #1 debuting in about a month's time. Leah Williams returning an old school X-Men title to the fold. On this cover, we do see Jubilee, Boom Boom, and Dazzler all rocking out. This is a retail exclusive variant from our friends over at Comics Elite, limited to 3,000 prints. Jay Anacleto is the cover artist. If you're interested in these covers, they are available for pre-order on the Comics Elite website. If you're interested, definitely go to the website. Now let's get Doc on the channel and talk about This Week in X-Men. It's a big time for X-Men. I guess it's supposed to be a big time for X-Men. We're in the middle of A.X.E Judgment Day. Almost everything being released as an X-Men title is tying into this event, X-Men 13 being one of them. And we also got A.X.E Judgment Day, Death to the Mutants #1 this week. And Doc and I are going to talk about it. How you doing, Doc?
I'm all right. But yeah, dude, this guy can't write.
Well, I think there's bigger issues in this. We get two tie-ins. We get the official one introducing the new X-Men team, and we get this Death to Mutants. And basically, we're just catching up to A.X.E Judgment Day #2. Let's talk about X-Men number 13 first. Gerry Duggan, CFV on art. As an introduction to an X-Men team, I don't think you could do anything worse. It's just them calling out like battle signals, and that's about it.
Nothing really occurs in this comic except for them demonstrating that, hey, we're already a fully fleshed out team that can totally work together and aren't going to screw up at all. We're already perfect. There's going to be no, learning curve of learning how to work together.
So I can't imagine a new team getting a worse debut issue. I will give this, I guess this is the best thing I can say about X-Men number 13. At least Iceman just wasn't in the background to remind you that he's a gay character now. He was growing, he was becoming a giant and kind of leading the X-Men to the center of the earth and stuff. So at least he was actually doing something besides just prancing around in the background.
This is the first time in the Hicksman era, and definitely in the post-Hicksman era, he advanced the plot, he took action, he did heroic things, he used his power interestingly, and he also didn't feel compelled to make out with a dude in the process.
Yeah, normally that's all he does especially in a Gerry Duggan written comic book. So that was nice. The big concern I have about this comic book in particular, outside of the fact that it's completely meandering and a waste of an introduction to a new team, is that Synch is so goddamn OP now, it's not even funny. He's getting limbs hacked off and they're growing back using ice, entering the minds of Eternals using Jean Grey's force. And apparently, he can just use everyone's power as well, if not better, than the people that originally had the power. And they've OP'd this son of a bitch so bad, it's not even funny.
It's like he doesn't even need to think at all about how to use any of the powers that he's now co-opted. He could just immediately use them. There's not any trauma at all or surprise or anything. When he gets his arm cut off, he just immediately makes an ice arm that is usable. And he doesn't just freak out for a second of, holy shit, I just had my arm cut off. What the hell do I do? That's the normal response. He's not even written like a person anymore.
Well, he's supposed to be getting older when he uses these powers, especially, I guess, if they're using memory muscle to use their powers and stuff. So they've given an angle to do something with the character that shows that there's a consequence to using these powers too much, but it's not even remotely in this comic book story. Even though Jean Grey is on Krakoa, he's at the center of the earth, so obviously he's not very close to her, and he's having to use that memory muscle to use her power to enter the mind of the Eternal, yet he doesn't age or anything.
If they added that as a hindrance or some sort of a drawback to him being so overpowered, when he goes and uses it, you don't see any negative side effects. He's not actively aging in the book. There's not even inner conflict of, oh my God, if I do this, I'm going to add 10 years onto my age or whatever it would be.
Yeah, I guess that was the only deficiency that the character has, but they're not exploiting it or showing it in there at all. I don't know. We had Icarus teaming up with the X-Men here to fight the Hex and the Eternals, But this story had already been told. We saw it from beginning to end. We just didn't see that they went to the center of the earth to cut off the power supply to the Hex themselves. I guess that's what happens here. But this isn't even like a side quest where you send the team off and say, you need to do this while we do this. This is just a flashback telling you a little bit extra story that wasn't portrayed in A.X.E. Judgment Day #2 and even #1, because that's all one big giant fight scene. I don't know that that story warrants an entire issue. I was completely bored and frustrated by the comic book.
Well, all this was the Lord of the Rings, the extended cut version of 2 scenes from A.X.E. Judgment Day #2. And honestly, that big fight against a bunch of kaijus doesn't warrant it. It's not interesting enough. I don't care. This has been the problem with X-Men since Gerry Duggan took over. The only thing he writes is X-Men combine powers like they're fucking Voltron to fight some giant kaiju. That's every issue. I feel like I'm watching an episode of the Power Rangers from the 90s.
Well, then in the end, we catch up to the regular story where the Celestial is reborn by the Avengers and the Eternals working together, and he's going to judge the planet. It's like, I've already seen this scene, but I guess this issue has to end on the same exact note as the previous one. We're going to see that in the next comic book we saw as well, and I'm seeing the same things happen over and over again, and it's already getting really stale and boring.
Yeah, I mean, okay, we get to see the picture from a different angle of the Celestial standing there about to, telling Earth it's going to be judged. And that's after we had a bunch of quippy bullshit with Forge and Iceman and Magic.
Yeah, and it's supposed to be the introduction of the new team that was obviously elected and kind of announced within the Hellfire Gala one-shot. Really disappointing stuff. Shockingly, and I don't recommend this, I just want everyone to know that, shockingly, I thought A.X.E. Judgment Day Death to Mutants #1, Kieron Gillen and Gui Villanova was actually more disappointing, because this is also doing the same thing. There's a moment in X-Men 13 where Icarus drops the security and they're able to infiltrate this place and cut off the power. And what Death to Mutants is showing how Icarus did that and the team that he got together to stop it.
Every single one of these tie-ins is just the extended cut version of the scene that happens off panel in another comic book.
Same thing happened with X-Men Red, obviously a couple of weeks ago, showing how the Iraqi mutants, on Mars died. It's like, you can't keep doing this. It's just, I guess it's fleshing out the story, but the story isn't good enough to warrant fleshing out to this degree.
Yeah, it actually makes the story worse because you start fleshing out things that nobody cares about. I'm
just really frustrated. Obviously, they are planting the seeds for some type of dissent. We've already got that within the Eternals, but apparently Uranus is going to be like the Eternal of choice over Druig. He's having a crisis of confidence, and they're losing confidence in him because his decisions, I guess, haven't been decisive enough. So they want Uranus to, I guess, end up taking over. Okay, way to set the groundwork. Does that warrant an entire 32 pages and $5 with the comic book and really bad art by Gui Villanova that you have to suffer through? I don't think so.
First, yeah, let us address the art on this book, because A.X.E. Judgment Day Death to the Mutants #1, the art in this is bad. Very bad. None of the people look right. The faces are okay, but he can't draw any action. It's like, yeah, they had like a portraiture artist doing faces, and everything else was, everyone, men and women, they all had the exact same body type. It's just a question of, are they taller or shorter than everybody else?
Well, there's a moment where they make Icarus look really stupid, like he's never had an idea in his mind before, and he gets this aha moment. And the art is quite frankly laughable, and I don't think you're supposed to be laughing at the character, but the art was so stupid and the moment so jarring that you couldn't help but just kind of roll your eyes and be like, why did they hire this guy? It just didn't look good whatsoever.
Not only that, but like, he's staring at the reader when he's like, I have an idea, with this goofy look on his face.
Also, when you have the title Death to the Mutants, I'm assuming this is an X-Men-centric tie-in to A.X.E. Judgment Day. The word mutants is in there, but this is an Eternals tie-in to Judgment Day, and I probably wouldn't have read it if I had known that that was the case. really the only thing you get is some like telekinetic battles between Professor X and like the lead telekinetic member of the Eternals team kind of battling. And that's really the only time you see the X-Men themselves, other than when they're storming the castle.
Right after Icarus sends the message that the way is open because he took down the defenses, and then you just see Magic and Sync and Iceman and them pop into wherever the hell that they needed to go. So that's it. There's this is just an issue of the Eternals. It reminds me why that comic got canceled. I can't keep track of any of these characters. None of them are memorable enough for me to even bother.
And mostly they're meandering around talking to each other. There are a couple of scenes of action where they had to get some type of cosmic briefcase from where the deviants are. But for the most part, it's just people standing around talking to each other, explaining what's happening in the story. That is never a good way to make the pages fly by. It was a tough read. I didn't think X-Men 13 was very good, but it's like The Watchmen compared to Death of the Mutants. It was absolutely terrible.
This was a very difficult read for me. It was not good. The narration in this was so fucking cringy. I had to stop and just stop reading and set the book down for a little while at the one point where he's talking about this isn't a story about kissing yet.
Yeah, I'm not impressed at all with A.X.E Judgment Day this week. I think there might have been a couple of more tie-ins, but I'm not going to bother with this. I'll read the mainline series. Maybe I'll take a gander here and there, but I think I'm off the A.X.E Judgment Day bandwagon. I'm not reading any of the tie-ins. These things are just filler bullshit. They're not even exciting like side adventures. They're just moments in time in the actual adventure where they're fleshing out scenes that just weren't important enough to make the entire story work anyway. So I definitely don't recommend either one of these. Just a terrible week in X-Men.
I definitely don't recommend them either. There's something to be said about the fact that the main series is just glossing over important scenes, but give them 2 or 3 extra pages, not a whole other comic book.
I was very surprised at how good A.X.E Judgment Day #1 was. Equally surprised at how bad #2 was, and it really feels like this event is trending downhill very fast. Definitely check out this review of the second issue where Doc and I were really taken aback by just how far the quality declined in such a short period of time. And if you're on a mobile device, there's a link in the video description as well.